Commissioner Bennie Smith was appointed to Shelby County, Tennessee Election Commission in April of 2019. He works in analytics and innovation. Smith's research is credited for uncovering an extraordinarily high-risk tampering mechanism and provides a new method for analyzing questionable election results. Now, you may have heard of fraction magic. Bennie Smith is the genius that discovered it in 2014 with election integrity icon Bev Harris. Today, Bennie has agreed to come and do a real-time demonstration of what it looks like when an election is being stolen. Now, Bennie, if you could just tell us, just how did this all begin? How did you discover this undetectable, which now, by the way, is known as Scorecard? How did you discover this, and how can you relate to what is going on today in our elections?
Thank you for having me. This is a reasonably uh, awkward time for so many people to be coming online for something like this. I'm in a place of considerable familiarity. I was a citizen back in 2014 using a predictions program that I created to help candidates get elected. And Shelby County had been plagued with lawsuits and candidates suing and complaining about the machines and wanting to resort to a non-machine tabulation count in the county due to some large Republican sweeps. It's a Democrat county, so there were large Republican sweeps of a majority Democratic county. And in 2014, a number of those candidates came to me, insisting that their election had been stolen. Well, I was of the opinion that really everybody who loses assumes that the election was stolen from them. So, as a consolation prize, because I'm a computer programmer, I decided, as a consolation prize, I would take a look at the software and let them know what I found. And I found some pretty pretty disturbing uh, uh, s- uh, pretty disturbing settings inside of it. And I coined that after working with Black Box Voting and the GOAT, Bev Harris. Uh, she is definitely an icon. I worked with her. I would only work with her, and I told her what I found, and we together coined the proof of concept that we did to demonstrate this fraction magic.
Wonderful. Uh, so, is it true, Bennie, that this can be running undetected by, say, for instance, any election auditor or election official that in their own right is doing everything that they possibly can to ensure a very integral election? Sometimes I've had the experience where the reaction from an election official is almost being offended. Uh, but the truth is, sometimes, and most times, they would never know that it's going on. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. The program that I designed, I put a configuration that could make the screen completely transparent or completely visible, and I really play around with the eye. There are so many things that run on a computer that run in the background. There's so many computer settings that people like me who are software developers know that most officials don't know. So kindly to those individuals, because I am a sitting election commissioner, so I'm just, my gift is my curse, if you will. I'm a election official who actually knows technology, and most election officials, they're not. Elections, they cross into many different professions. So there's budgeting, there's finance, there's planning, there's process improvement, there's computational science. There are lots of different fields, and these individuals, they are usually just holding one or two of those fields. So it can entirely be a system that's running, and they have no clue that it's running.
Bennie, if you will, for those that hadn't heard of fraction magic, but because of this year's general election, have heard quite a bit about Hammer Scorecard, can you tell people how the two are similar, if not actually the same thing described by two different names.
Right. I'm a little hurt. I was on an island by myself. I was in 2014 was when I was approached. 2015 is when I conducted a study and found out that this counting mechanism that we'll demonstrate today was inside of the systems, and it was still taboo to say that anything nefarious could happen with election results. So I was kind of on an island by myself, and developing fraction magic was just a proof of concept to just show from start to finish that this is a real deal. You can actually do something very diabolical, very you get to play God without permission, and you can do it with a level of precision that can really mimic some realistic results. And to hear that there's a hammer, I think the hammer is more of a brute force algorithm that's getting inside of the computers. And if you listen to like all of the experts and watch the Kill Chain documentary or watch Black Box, what put Bev Harris on the pedestal that she belongs on now, the Hacking Democracy and the Harry Hursty hack. He actually did something when you got inside of the machine. So the hammer is getting inside, I believe. But Scorecard is actually changing election results. And you hear everybody talking about the ability for them to be hacked, and people can get inside, and whether it's connected to the internet, a lot of stuff that just really is barely germane to the actual subject. Scorecard, or it has a name now, but fraction magic is what you do when you get inside. This is literally the software that I'm going to run is actually what we currently use. We used it in our presidential election. And if this code was running on that machine, it would do exactly what I'm going to show it to do today.
So, Benny, it just brings me to a subject in regard to Hammer. I want to ask your professional opinion. For instance, if there was a massive security breach in, let's say, an IT department of a state that was in charge of cybersecurity for the elections within that state, if there was a security breach that then, let's just say, there was a subsequent ransomware attack, would you liken that unto the hammer that would get into to allow the fraction magic to take place?
Absolutely. That's your intrusion program to set up your infrastructure. I would just if there was a breach of a network, that network is dead to me. There's no way that you can trust anything on that network without a clean sweep of the entire network. And if there was a ransomware, the ransomware usually isn't disclosed. That's usually some user that they have some leverage over to escalate or gain larger privileges. So the ransomware could have happened in December last year, December 2018, and they only take claim of what they wanted from the ransoming during the election time. So it is a large unknown that would be very discouraging if that took place in any place, in any company, in anywhere where the
If I may, I will take it out of the hypothetical and say that we received a whistleblower um, voicemail alerting us to a quote massive security breach the last week of September of this year prior to the general election that affected DSHS, which is our state's food stamp program, as well as DCYF, as well as Department of Revenue, and most importantly, WATEC, which is the organization in charge of protecting our elections. So, if indeed the ransomware attack that wasn't announced until after the election in one particular county, it was Lincoln County, would you say that the fact that the ransomware attack is widely agreed upon that it actually did happen, the massive security breach was denied that that didn't happen because We were told that our governor, Inslee, demanded that state employees keep it quiet and do not tell the media about it. So the question is, the fact that there was an acknowledged ransomware attack in November, would you say, in your professional opinion, that that would then suggest that indeed the security breach must have happened prior to that to allow the ransomware attack?
Right. I've worked at some very large companies, and there was one time that I can remember that a warehouse, a very obscure computer, a warehouse was sent a phishing email, and an employee clicked it. And I'll just fast forward to the ending. That was a lot of people there were a lot of people who were affected by that. We're talking retirement accounts, transferring the savings out of the accounts. These guys, they get in, they only have to get it right once, right? They get in, they install these, it's a technical term, but a keylogger that's basically monitoring your keystrokes. And when you log into the bank account and you log into your Vanguard savings account, it's remembering these passwords. It's literally transferring these passwords back. And these people can go in and do things that are untold over long time periods. No, I don't think there is a single hacker who is trying to signal what they want, what they want, or how long they were there. Right? That's tantamount to saying that somebody broke into your house, and when they finished, they left the key on the porch. Right? If I don't care if you left the key on the porch, I'm changing the locks. Right? That is just not something that, if you're taking it seriously, that you would allow. I think HBO tried to do it. There was a guy that somebody hacked the HBO, and they were getting ready to do the final episode of was Game of Thrones, and I think the guy wanted like $10 million. And do you really think he would allow the season finale to go before he asked for the ransom? So definitely there's a time argument there that somebody's well aware of. So I would definitely be wanting, as a citizen, to know what that timeline was, because that's public.
Well,
That's a public.
here's the most concerning thing that I haven't said yet. It also is public knowledge that some months before the supposed massive security breach, another department, our Employment Security Department, after the CARES Act, um, the federal government gave millions of dollars to our state. $350 million, I believe, was stolen uh, by a Nigerian scam. That's, I believe, what it was called. Now, if a Nigerian scam via a hacker was able to steal multiple hundreds of millions of dollars, would you say that at that point the system is vulnerable after that type of invasion? Is that how you would articulate it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty light. I think it's pretty light. I worked for ABB. It's a Swiss company, and there was a guy who embezzled $100 million from the organization. He was an insider, though. I think you want to say he was over ethics. He was a person that was in charge of reporting the revenues, and that's the only way that I can see something like that, of that magnitude, allowed to flourish. And you can take away that much money. You have to be in a position not to report it. So that's a lot of money for a government entity not to notice and not to have a trail of how that was allowed to happen. But if you just take it all for what it is, that is a good indication of when you need to shut everything down. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of taxpayer money.
And
Well, it
so,
was the CARES Act money, so it was a lot of taxpayer money.
yes, and that happened in the spring. So if the alleged massive security breach happened in September, the end of September, then from a whistleblower testimony, I have a signed affidavit, the National Guard was called in to take our elections off of the Secretary of State's server and put on their own server. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would not want to know the reasoning for it, because if someone has infiltrated the government entities, then you're just moving it out of the back pocket into the front pocket. I think the network and the infrastructure, the connectivity, because jurisdictions report up to the state. So if there's any compromise in one area, you would have to check all of the areas that connect to it. So that would be definitely alarming, and that was signal to me why you would need somebody like a National Guard coming in, because that's a federal, at that point it's federal, because you have revenues that were given by the federal government. So that is.
Yes, but Benny, think of it. That the the steal happened in spring when the first CARES Act package came. This uh, supposed security breach, the timeline was the end of September, so months after that, and only then was uh, the elections supposedly taken out of that server onto their own server. And then 2 months later, month and a half later, after the election, was this supposed, not supposed, it's known, ransomware attack. So we have three different security incidences here, and all within a presidential election. I mean, you as a respected election commissioner, if this happened in your jurisdiction, would you A, allow the election to go forward, or B, would you have certified it? And if you did certify it, see, in our Constitution, our RCWs, uh, there's a Class C felony attached to anyone that certifies an election that they can't reasonably say uh, did not go off without a hitch, to put it lightly.
Yeah, I'm not putting my signature on anything that I can't verify. I've been an election commissioner, and I think I've only since 2019, and because I know what I can do to this software that we're going to demo, I think I've only voted to certify one election. And it's not to say that things are inherently flawed, but there are state laws and statutes that we should follow, and I contend that we don't follow those statutes. So because we are not following just the statutory guidance or mandate, I took an oath to follow those statutes. And just on that alone, I won't certify. If you telling me I got this whole barrage of, I mean, it sounds like a movie. Was this written about anywhere? What I hear you describing is just something that just, I'm thinking I'm watching Mr. Robot on USA television. It sounds like something out of a scripted sitcom or movie, except it's serious. So yeah, me as a committee a commissioner, I would absolutely not be voting to certify anything, and I would be using the authority or the mandate that my oath would be giving me to get to the bottom of making the election commission accountable by the public. It's a public entity. It's funded by public dollars, and at the very least, it should be something that answers to the public.
Now, if a foreign entity, like Nigeria, for instance, uh, had infiltrated our computer systems, uh, the fact that that key to the house is there underneath the mat, that our home was able to be infiltrated to steal, and not the locks were not changed. So, I mean, I am not a computer uh, expert, but to me, that suggests the probability that our elections could have been vulnerable to foreign interference. Is that a stretch?
I don't think so. Like if someone is breaching the infrastructure and they're reaching out to all of these different places in government, then I would think that all parts of the government are fair game. Elections in most the election well governments in most counties are the largest employers. So there's a lot of appointment authority and transitional power in Shelby County every 4 years. I think it's in the upward neighborhood of a $500 million in appointments, signing authority, salaries that transitions overnight when a slate of candidates are either thrown out or reelected. So it is not, doesn't mean that's what happened, but it's not a reach to me to assume that if someone is breaching the elections division that they may be concerned with elections. Does that make it clear? I mean, pick the public works system or the Department of Human Services, but they pick the elections division. So
Well, actually,
they're out.
to be fair, the breach in springtime when the Nigerian scam stole $350 million from our employment security department, that was the first breach. The second breach was four other government agencies. And then in November, it was the ransomware attack in one county. So, in my thinking, the fact that a foreign entity breached one of our government agencies, uh, it's not a far stretch in my mind that those open doors that existed, uh, as you put it, the door to the house was open in the middle of an election. That's my concern as a citizen and as a voter, that our elections were vulnerable if that door remained open throughout the election.
Yeah, you don't know if the door was opened by somebody who was impacted by the ransomware, right? What if someone was leveraged? I don't think it's too far to want to rule something like that out. You could have had a, a nation state actor or a foreign power or foreign actor gain and compromise a local official and thereby got the keys to other houses as a result. So it would definitely warrant some level of forensic investigation because how do you know it's not going to happen again?
Is that
If you
something
don't change the
that
keys,
still, pardon me,
if you don't change the keys to the house, then they may have created a whole nother set of doors.
and is that something, Benny, that could still be audited at this point, a forensic audit, or is it too late?
It's a little bit out of my technical ability, but I would think you could. You know, I had a hard drive to crash on me, and I just sent it to a a place where they recovered nearly every file from it. So I do know that when I would work when I worked in government, we would have to wipe the drives like 7 times before we would discard them. So there's mostly always some data that can be recovered or some forensic. If some you would need some forensic type of you could do forensic accounting. Yeah, so you could follow how the money came into from the CARES Act and how it left out. So there's a ton of things that you could do. Maybe not to paint the whole picture, but to get an idea. I would think that would happen in like the state comptroller's office. The government may be different in Washington, but in Tennessee, our kind of like auditor would be our state comptroller. That's like the financial arm of the federal, I mean the state government. So somewhere in that area or a process audit, I would think that a process audit or something like that would be warranted. Forensic for sure.
And the forensic audit could determine, say, for instance, where the ransomware attack originated?
Yeah, whoever initiated the ransomware or communicated, they had to do through some form of a government channel, right? They would have done it through email. They would have done it through a government phone. It would have to, you would have to make communication some kind of way. So you would have all of this, that's all government assets. So you would be able to examine those assets to see if those messaging, because they spoke to somebody, right? So the timeline will at least be corroborated with audit logs and system event logs and looking at when the credentials were used from the bad actors, whose credentials they had, and those would be almost like you do COVID, right? Contact tracing. You're looking at the individuals that cross paths or the user IDs that cross paths when uh, this this exercise was happening at the government level.
So, Benny, last question before we see your demonstration.
Mhm.
Many times I will hear from election officials, don't worry, we have an air gap. There's no way anything can happen uh, in this election. No hacking can take place because we have an air gap. Could you please address that?
Yeah, sure. Let me see. This is called a USB drive. I don't know how many computers this thing has been in. Nonetheless, all of the election equipment is programmed and function as primary function receives information from removable media, right? And in some instances, those removable media are encrypted because they're proprietary from the election vendors. However, the programming of the removable media is very likely done on a computer that is connected to some network or the internet. So even if you were so lucky that you had a sterile room with this, I would say like an emergency room where you go in there and everybody's got sterile equipment on. Even if you were to have that, if the tools that you're about to use were not kept in a sterile environment, then you just brought germs into the sterile room. So it is it is more of a, it's more clever than it is true that that is a safeguard. And as we're finding out now, they said the voting machines never connected to the internet, and now Dominion is completely under fire because they're saying that they do connect to the internet, and a network or a VPN or any type of function across lines is a network, and it's a different version of online. It's not, hey, I can go to www.aol.com, but you can ping addresses. There are other protocols that you can get to other avenues around a closed network that eventually leads out to the internet. So that's just really not going to fly anymore. It doesn't work in any other profession. The military, they close off USB ports. They don't even let you use USB ports in their devices because this is probably the most threatening piece of equipment that can harm a computer, a USB port.
And Benny, just lastly, Dominion has been the subject matter of Fraction Magic, Scorecard. Uh, could you please tell everyone who's listening in regard to the DNA of all tabulators, ES&S, Heart, Clear Ballot, Dominion, that they all are children of the same progeny? Is that not correct?
Yeah, from what I know, the GEMS tabulator, the election management system, the one that we're going to use was the inaugural program that was by Premier Diebold, and that's that was what the subject of Hacking Democracy was. It was the first one out of the gate. That software was, I think, acquired by ES&S, and then there was some type of antitrust where the intellectual property went to Dominion. but it was first owned by ES&S. And I think Dominion got the hardware and the intellectual property, and ES&S kept the contracts. So the software that I'm going to demonstrate today is Dominion software. However, in Shelby County, that software and hardware is maintained by ES&S. So the inaugural DNA of at least ES&S and Dominion, possibly Hart, even though I would think that Hart is probably more secure than the others because they were after the split, I think.
Actually,
Um,
Benny, there's been a forensic audit that I just saw today, released by Alliance Security Operations
in
Group
Michigan,
in Texas.
in Texas, okay.
Yes, and I will send that to you. Anyway, there is a video that I saw of the same security group talking about how Hart, in particular, first was establishing that they all have the feature that Dominion,
Hmm.
ES&S, Clear Ballot, Hart, and Dominion, but specified that Hart actually has the ability, another feature, that can erase completely the audit trail.
Yeah, I heard something like that. I would have to read it. I do think that I read in I think our RFP documents that Dominion is saying that they can't, but I think I've seen something on an audit log that had the capability. So I always liken it back to Nintendo Wii. Um, the Nintendo Wii came out, and everybody was like, "Man, this would be great if it could play DVDs." And then somebody hacked it, and it was called Homebrew, and then you could play DVDs on it, right? So most of the hardware and software have capabilities that we are unaware of, and then along comes a developer who understands what to do with that circuitry, and they can turn anything they want on. So I wouldn't be surprised if they all had the same capability. Again, they're computers. You can modify a computer to do nearly anything you want to if you understand the circuitry, or if you understand the ones and zeros, or you can get to some, it's called a kernel, but if you can get to some part of the computer that controls what the yeses and nos and what's allowed and what's not. So they're all configurable. They do what they're told. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I think I can speak for everyone watching that we're very excited to see this demonstration. So, without any further ado,
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna play a little quick video, because no matter what you tell yourself, you just have to remember that this is a feature. It's not a bug. It had a purpose that I don't think was ever used. However, that feature still remains in all of the election equipment. It's what I think is the real problem with the election equipment. And it's also why I think you should remove computers and become Luddites and just have hand marked paper ballots. So I'll share my screen. Actually, I won't share my screen. I'll just turn on my screen so you can see it this way. And all right, so I'm going to play this quick video, and it's basically this is a presentation that I normally give them. I skip through the slides and go straight to the video. But it was how I came across what I would coin as fraction magic. It was due to a number of anomalies that were happening in a predominantly Democrat county, and there was headline after headline of people suing. The Democrats were counting the votes, and then it switched to Republican, and then there was a sweep of all Republican races, and these are literal newspaper clippings. Our election administrator, people thought he had his thumb on the scale. He was voted no confidence, and he had this term that we all know now as a glitch. And he was a person that, every election there were glitches, but the Republicans were sweeping all the Democrat seats. In 2014, we had the renowned Judge Joe Brown to decide to run for local prosecutor, and he could not get the lion's share of literally his fan base from Memphis. He's from Memphis, and he could not win that seat. And there were articles of people saying if they didn't move a race to another part of the election cycle, that they would have swept that seat too, right? So it's complete domination of Republican sweeps in a Democrat county. And the last article said that Black people should considerably should consider joining the Republican Party. It was that bad, right? She had a lot of infighting. So this was the time that those people came to me. I think about 9 candidates came to me, and that's when I took a look at the system. And I want to go over what I found. And this is Jordan Robertson from Bloomberg Technology. They did a cover story on an example of that I'll show. But this is a description of the feature that we're going to talk about. And I'm going to play it now.
Interesting thing about the GEMS tabulator is not just that it's used in many of the elections that many of you watching may participate in, but it has a bug or a feature, as its creators would call it. And now this bug was discovered by a computer programmer in Memphis named Bennie Smith, who we profiled as part of our Business Week piece. Now, Bennie has found some really interesting oddities about Memphis's vote counting and vote tabulation, some very serious problems that were undiscovered until he looked into them. One of the things that he found, which we didn't write about, but which we think is really relevant here, is that GEMS has this feature where in very rare cases, in very rare instances where counties or municipalities are voting on land use taxes, certain votes can be weighted differently. So if I own 1 acre and you own 2 acres, in these very specific cases, your vote will count for twice as much as mine when we're voting on things like property taxes. Again, very rare niche cases. However, the system allows election administrators to adjust and basically weight races according to those guidelines. It makes a lot of sense in those limited uses. However, what Bennie discovered was that this feature appears to be turned on by default across this universe of GEMS databases. So what does that mean? Well, that means you can literally weight races based on who you want to win. You can plug in a percentage into these computers before the race and say, I want Jordan Robertson to get 75% of the vote. And the trick is going into these races, you don't know if you're going to hack an election, how many total voters will come out. It's very hard to rig the race if you don't know how many voters will come out. But if you can assign percentages to a given candidate, it doesn't matter how many voters come out. You can say Jordan Robertson gets 75% of the vote. Whatever the total number that comes in is tabulated at, the numbers can be adjusted accordingly. I mean, it's impossible to overstate how significant this is. This is, again, a feature, but winds up being a security vulnerability. And I want to give you an example of what that looks like. I should preface this all by saying this is a proof of concept that this computer programmer has come up with. This is just demonstrating that computers can't always be trusted. They can be tampered with easily. And in this case, this isn't even a hack. This is a modification that the creators of the GEM system have enabled on purpose.
So the way this works is this is the layman's. So raw vote totals, they come in at a precinct level, and then those totals are then transmitted via wireless modem, some landline, some internet, some network capable function, or a USB, some removable media, and that is sent to a central tabulator. And in this example, GEMS is that central tabulator. And I'm going to run some hidden code that's in the top right corner. I'll try to show it to you. It's kind of hard to see because I made it hide in plain sight. And that will be the running of fraction magic. And that centrally tabulated information is then sent to your state board of elections, which is then priced out to the media organizations. And this graphic was developed by Lynn Bernstein of North Carolina. She really captured it because this is anecdotally what people are saying right now. It's probably gonna make a couple of people flesh crawl. So basically, these totals are being changed at the central tabulator using powerful financial allocation methods. And those reallocated totals can sometimes be out of sync, where the timing of when those totals are changed don't happen before it's on screen. And it literally happens and is adjusted while it's on screen. And it's captured by this caption that says, "That's strange. I wonder why the candidate A's vote totals just went down." And it should be addition. It should always be increasing in number. But there are times if it's run with the timing out of sync, then the totals will go down, right? So 2015, I go through this exercise because I know that this problem does exist. And I should preface it, this isn't fraction magic. This is a different problem. Nonetheless, it just highlights that computers cannot be trusted even further. It just makes the point further. So I use my predictions program, studying fraction magic, realizing that there's basically two sets of books the way the GEMS tabulator works, and there's a lower level of detail where you have to get your precision. It requires much more precision because it's not basically candidate B total, candidate A total. It's literally the precinct level by all the voting methods, right? So you got your polling place, your absentee, and your early votes. So I literally I go to this my predictions program tell me that it should be about 600 people to participate on election day, and if you're going to do something bad, you got to do it where there are a lot of votes, or else it's not going to make a difference. So I go to this polling place, and I probably should get a BlackBerry. If you're listening, you should give me an endorsement because I'm always talking about your phones. I still carry a BlackBerry, but I take out my BlackBerry phone and I take a picture of this poll tape. It's literally a poll tape is literally a cash register receipt of what happened on election night. It's literally the only data that gets committed to the record where you can have some written proof of what the computer thought happened to it before it was sent to the central tabulator. So I take a picture of this poll tape and I log that 548 people participated at the polls on election night. Well, 4 days later, the aggregated totals in the computer tabulator only represents that precinct as 330 votes. Well, you can't do that. You can't do that with addition. You can do it with subtraction. So literally, there's this lady who really pressed me to look at the system in the first place. She was running for office again. She saw her totals drop down in the middle of her victory watch party. She speeds to the election commission. I think she cussed everybody who was breathing out, basically saying my totals dropped in the middle of the election. How in the world can this be? And we fought like brothers and sisters. And I basically said, look, you should just take this picture. And she wanted to cite all of these anomalies and irregularities. And I said, look, you should just take the picture of the poll tape. Just take the picture of the poll tape. And she took it. Literally, that's all she had. No lawyer would take her case. She went pro se. And she handed the judge the picture of the poll tape. And he basically said somebody's got some explaining to do. And that that prompted Bloomberg to come and write about it because they really had never seen something that has so much clear evidence that something went wrong. And this was a software design flaw that still exists, and it's bad. But nonetheless, this was a time when the computer just couldn't count right. It told the memory card that it counted it, but it didn't. So it was missing 40% of the total, and that was a problem. Nonetheless, the court case went to summary judgment, and about a short couple of months, it was October, November, December. So the beginning of December, about a month and a half later, or let's say 2 months, we'll be rounding up. The administrator that everybody had all those articles, everybody said he's got his thumb on the scale. I met him; he seemed like an okay guy. But I built Fraction Magic with one major premise. I said, does anybody have an incentive to remain in power? And that answer is a resounding yes. And the follow-up is, what would you do to stay in power? And that's lie, cheat, steal, kill is still on the table. There are instances where people come up disappearing. There's a lot at stake when it comes to elections. However, this guy decided to retire despite all of the calls of the vote of no confidence, and a very popular state representative here. He's still a representative today. He was like, no, fire him. He called for the firing and investigation of the election administrator. Nonetheless, he was allowed to retire, and we didn't have any. We had a 2016 election, and the first major election where we normally see all of these Republican sweeps happen, that was in 2018. And the majority of Shelby County is African American females. There are lots of white Democrats, but it's majority African American voters are female. And in 2018, these were the headlines. Democrats sweep every single seat. It's a complete reversal of fortune, right? Just a four short years later of, 2014 and 2010, complete domination where every seat was captured by Republicans. And this is what those winners look like. They looked a lot like the electorate. So I don't know. I don't care. I'm just trying to rule it out. But there's something to be said about a lot of these people. And Wanda Howard's lady in the red dress, she is now in charge of $975 million in revenue. So I think she's got a seat that a lot of people will want to keep because that's a lot of power and girl power. She's got that seat now. She had the second greatest number of votes cast in the entire election. So I'm going to show now with my screen what the GEMS software looks like. This is literally the software that our county runs, and I'm going to open it up, and we're gonna get nasty and be dirty and steal an election tonight. So the report that most people see is called our statement of our election summary report. And for the sake of the real estate, I'm gonna steal the first race. It's still bad that I can say I'm going to steal anything. Nonetheless, I'm gonna play around with the first race, and I'm gonna put it up on the screen. We'll see the governor's race is what I want to deal with, and Bill Haslam is the proverbial winner. It won't be after long. I'm gonna just pick a random number. It doesn't matter what number I choose. 38,212 votes. So he's definitely a proverbial winner right now. Everybody should know that these results are already decided. It is in a controlled environment, but if this was running on a county operated machine, it would do the same thing. So I'm going to open up what we used to see in the web portal, which is those results that get copied from a flash drive and put up into a web portal that the media would see. So same thing, the totals for the Republican governor as Bill Haslam, and you see those totals, they match, right? So I'm going to open up now Fraction Magic, and it is going to be opened in the top corner. And I'm going to zoom in because it's running, but it doesn't look like it. And I'm going to zoom in so that you can see that there is something up there. And you should be able to see on your screen something that says magic code. And it's so hard for me to do. All right, there we go. Come on. A little bit more. All right, so you should be able to see now it says magic code right here. And I'm going to type something in there. And it's going to be a little jingle that I did to open up these settings, and I'm going to type some settings in there, and we're going to play with the governor's race. All right. So these black boxes are in conjunction with the GOAT, Bev Harris, blackboxvoting.org. So we put everything in black boxes. This is the proof of concept. This is a framework that Fraction Magic is reading the database so it can learn the options. And basically, it brings up these allocation rules. And right now, Bill Haslam is the winner, and we're going to anoint a new winner by playing with some totals. And let's see who we want the winner to be. So there, Basil Marshall is the worst person in the race. So let's just make him the winner because that's very unbelievable, but we can make him the winner. And the next person, Joe Kirkpatrick, let's make him have a good night too. So first place will be Basil. He will be the winner. We have to decide by how much. And Joe Kirkpatrick will be the runner-up. So I'm going to set some allocation rules. I have this random function that I'm going to pre-populate inside of Excel. And I'll just say that these areas, these are precincts, right? So there's a precinct location called Roselle Elementary School. There's another one called Glenview Community Center. If I pop down, Hollywood Community Center. So these are the percentages of the total votes that this candidate will get when the early voting is that EA is early voting, AB is absentee ballot, AP is at the polls. So literally we can configure very specific, we can skip one. John will talk about that if we wanted to not touch this precinct at all, and they wanted to pre-decide a precinct that they wanted to audit, you can literally do the audit that way. So I'm going to open Excel, and I'm going to set some allocation rules. And I'm going to pick a random number between 40 and 45. I'm just going to give a random number between 40 and 45, and you can literally see that it's just picking random numbers. And that's to make it look realistic. And I'm going to just go across, and I'm going to say he's going to get random any number between 41 and 45 is what I'm going to use. And you would spend your time planning here to make sure that it mimics prior elections. This is when the election databases become so important, the voter registration rolls. And that's why you always hear about these breaches of registration rolls, because this is how you get it right. You can't touch certain precincts. You can have a Republican who's beloved by a lot of Black Democrats, and because he hands out turkeys every year, and you can't touch that precinct because nobody's going to believe it, right? Or you have something like Antrim County happens, where it's a Republican county and somebody thought that they could give the. All right. So anyway, so we'll paste those values in, and literally I'm pasting all of these results, and I'm going to make the winner. I said it would be Basil. Basil will be the winner, and the runner-up is going to be Joe Kirkpatrick. And the way this is going to work is he's going to get 43%, 41%, 49, 40, 46% of this precinct and on down. Joe Kirkpatrick will get 33 to 37% of everything else that remains, and that'll make him the winner. So I'm going to close this out. My scratch paper, I'm going to close that out. And the next thing I want to do is run it. So I'm going to open Fraction Magic. It's going to run, my camera isn't on, but it's going to run from a thumb drive. And I'm going to open Fraction Magic again so we can see that I'm going to type something this time. So in the magic code, if you look up at the top right screen, if you can see it, I'm going to type a code that's going to execute this program. So, all right, don't make me look bad. I'm going to hit enter now. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. And in 5 seconds, we now have a new winner. We're not going to even close it. It says Fraction Magic, ethical swap complete, not scorecard, but scorecard-ish. You can already see there's a new winner here, but it's instant. So we're going to close this, and we're going to re-preview the retotals. And I'm going to zoom in for a second, and I'll pause a little bit so a lot of this can land for people. So in here, our winner is Basil. And Basil has $333,071.34. And I want that to land because we are no longer talking about votes. We are talking about cents on the dollars. And this is the infrastructure and the framework that makes this so damaging and deadly. Because with these with this precision, right? With this precision, this allows me to conduct powerful financial allocation models that changes votes in a way that's so precise that I end up with the right number of votes and everybody else ends up with what I wanted them to have. I said Basil would be the winner. Kirkpatrick would have an okay night. He only had like 700 something votes, right? So he is now in the second place, and I have literally decided to win her by being God without permission. And when you look at all these decimal places, right, it look like we're talking about somebody's bank balances. But if I go to the screen, and this one happened before we even finished, it updated on the fly. If you look at Basil is now at the top. He has 33371 instead of 33371.34 because 0.34 rounds down to 0. And what's happening is you see votes in real time, and you can't tell that it's money anymore because the default setting is to round up the numbers and round them off. I told it to tell you that I was running a weighted election and show you that I was running a weighted election. And I'm gonna go even a little step further, and I'm gonna do it one more time so you can see that I'm not just making it up. But I'm gonna close this, and I'm gonna show you something else. Not only did I take it at up top line level, I took it at the lowest level possible, which is at the precinct level. And this is a 2,400 page report. And I went through every page, 2,450 pages. And if you look at these totals, it's going to look like bank balances. So how is it that the total votes is 1.61, right? 0.37. This is parity where this 1.61, this person is getting 1.24, 0.37 to end up being 1.61. It is literally adjusting along the number line to give me this percentage that I just called out of nowhere, right? You can't, without getting into too much math, you can't just tell two numbers to obey a percentage without decimal places. And that's what makes the decimal place the complete evisceration of one person, one vote. And when I saw it, this is why it was so morbid to me when I saw it. So this is at the lower level, right? And I'll go to the last page of this report, and you will see that all the way up. And I get to the totals at the very end of this is going to be the exact same thing, and it's looking like money at this point. It's a financial program. I'm looking at a balance sheet or P&L is what it looks like to me, and that's why I was able to identify it so well, because I understand the financial part of it. But basically, you can see here are the totals, right? I said Basil would get a certain number, and he gets that certain number. And um, there's one other piece that is really just, I think it really does it for me. If I look at the race setting, look at what it says for governor. It says these are candidate race, but it says what type of race is this? It's a weighted race. And that is the feature. It's a weighted election. It allows you to set weights and remove one person, one vote, and allow those people to be weighted. So we're going to conduct the same election again, really quick, because I'm going to turn it over to John or answer any questions that you may have. I'm going to run it again, and I'm going to do something that a buddy of mine in Florida, Tim Canova, he seemed not to be able to get more than 5% of any precinct. He could never crack 5%. I'm going to be so blatantly obvious that this would obviously get you caught, but I'm going to give candidate Bill Haslam, I'm going to give him exactly 5%. I'm going to say, I'm going to ruin your career. You'll get exactly 5% of all votes. I'm going to end this guy's career, right? He's going to get exactly 5%, right? And I'm going to exit this. I'm going to close it, and I'm going to run it again. Literally, I'm going to run it again. I'm going to re-steal a re-steal. So I'm stealing it, and I'm stealing it again, right? So you have people saying, well, the algorithm broke and they had to go back and add more to the totals. This is how something like that would happen. So I'm going to bring it again and just show you that Basil is still the winner right now. I don't know who's going to, I think Joe Kirkpatrick is actually going to win in this scenario. But Bill Haslam he's got 1764, but we're going to run fraction magic another time. We're just going to run it again, just willy-nilly. We can run this over and over again 100 times in a row if we wanted to. I'm going to do it again. 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. All right, 5 seconds, same thing. Close it, open it again, preview it. Let's see what Bill Haslam has. Look at that. He's got $3,871.65, or exactly 5%. Exactly 5%. That is how precise I can be with this tool, and that's exactly why it's so dangerous. And with that, I will yield back the balance of my time.
Now, if that's not frightening, honestly, to see it, I mean, I've known about it, but to see it in action in that way, it really, when you said that you and Bev had that sinking feeling, I get it, I understand. And a question came to me that could an election official go to their county tabulator, which the thumb drive would come from, that they would then walk to their laptop, that they would put that thumb drive in to then have that go to the central tabulator? Could they go to their own tabulator that the ballots actually were counted in? And would they be able to run a version of the poll tape that was shown in your demonstration to be able to see any type of evidence of decimals? Or Is that only with the Dominion, or what are your thoughts on that?
You would be able to see it if the computer hasn't rounded off the decimal places. Any programmer worth their salt, if they did it, there's another piece that I wrote to do this where I'll go and clean up my mess. So no, you wouldn't see, you wouldn't see it if there's a good developer. However, if you caught it in the right state, you could potentially see it.
So, for instance, say it was a few days after the election, would a so-called um, uh, not random but routine Microsoft security patch, would that be able to fix everything, put it back into round numbers?
Yeah, another point of entry is a way back in to conduct another series of executional programs. Um, the way that you could check it, the best way to check it, and this is something that John is going to talk about. I don't want to steal his thunder. He literally founded a whole project based on this. But when I was running this, I wanted to steal it at every level, and I will definitely go on record to say I did a top down allocation, but there's a bottom up one. And that's the one I think that's running. It is twice deadly. It is twice dead. I refuse to build it. When I saw the again, I'm reading out of like programmers manuals and I built this to spec. I built fraction magic as a proof of concept, as if I was bidding to get the job to build this weighted election feature based on a user manual that if you go to blackboxvoting.org, you'll see the user manual is there. It's like 200 pages. And basically it gives the concept and tells the developers what the rules of engagement are. And that's how I built. I didn't add anything. I didn't take anything away from it. But there was another where you use these pluses and minuses, and that's what you see on television. Where I think there was an instance where 19,000 went one way, and it's like a counterbalance. And there's a guy he's making the rounds now, and he gives credit to Fraction Magic, but I think he nearly reverse engineered the whole algorithm the way that it works, and he did it as a video game. But that one I didn't want to build because I didn't want to build that one. I said if I build this, I will not get caught. I don't think that I will get caught with this one. And I built this one with just enough variation that if it fell into the wrong hands, if somebody was able to get this USB drive, I never travel with it. I usually remote through a VPN and assemble it. I got a program that assembles it. When I go and do demonstration, it assembles it. It assembles it so that I can run it, and then I destroy it, and then I leave. I literally like hit Shift Delete and delete it off the thumb drive, and I'm gone. So that one I didn't even want to touch. But the point that I was making was when I was trying to make sure that I couldn't get caught and steal it at every level, there was one place that caught me: ballot images. One place that caught me because I can't do 0.6 of a picture. If you fill out a circle and you fill out 0.6 of that circle, you still voted for me. And after that, when me, Bev Harris, Mimi Kennedy, and John Breaker, I think that was the only people that was inside of the circle. John asked me the question in Mimi's house, and he said, "What did you do with the ballot images?" And I said, "John, I couldn't get at them, man. I tried to get them. I tried to get them, but I can't do it." And right after that, John founded the Ballot Image Project, and he went literally state by state. And I don't want to take his thunder. He went state by state, suing for those ballot images, and literally, they don't want to give them up. And they don't want to give them up. And that's not to say that somebody's doing something wrong, but if there's anything wrong, that would be the thing you would withhold.
So let me ask you, if, for instance, if it was found that over 6,000 votes showed as a loss for a candidate and then a gain for another candidate, the exact same number in our assessment, 6,614 votes showed as a loss to a third candidate, and 6,614 votes showed as a gain for Biden. How would you explain that? Is that indicative of fraction magic, or is that something else?
Yeah, that's exactly what I see. I see weights. I see weights. again, there's another guy. I got to meet him. He literally mathematically described how the algorithm is balancing on some type of wheel, how to assign those weights. He's doing the bottoms up version. I'm doing the top down version. I understand it clearly what he's describing, but that would be the only way that you could have it an exact positive and an exact negative at the same time. And if you just again, if you go to blackboxvoting.org and you look at the manual, it's telling the developers that you need to counterweight. You need to be able to weight them evenly so that you don't end up with too many votes or more votes than voters, because that's typically what you have when you have unequal weights, more votes than voters, sometimes less, but most of the times more votes than voters. And when you have round off errors, that's what you're adjusting for, because it's an approximation. And without going too far into the math of it, you literally need that because it's just giving you an approximation. Because these are sweeping allocations. The best way I can say it is you got to have this decimal precision. NASA uses 15 decimal places of pi when they calculate revolutions to the moon, because if you just stopped at 3.14 and chopped off all of that decimal precision, you missed the moon by a mile. So all of that, all of that precision is important. If you just go look at your gas station when you drive past the gas, everybody just drive past the gas station. You're gonna see 3 decimal places. I don't care what you think. You're gonna see 3 decimal places, even though the second decimal place is the penny. You're still gonna see 3 decimal places. Then there's a reason for that. There's actually a reason for that. So you need your precision. So this is why you have to have that. And if you go to blackboxvoting.org, you'll see the programmers dealing with the emails of why you need the 3 places in decimal precision. It's not cool. Let's just say it's not cool.
Well, Benny, what is cool is having you here and teaching us all and showing us all firsthand. This isn't hearsay. We saw in real time what this supposed conspiracy theory of Scorecard actually is. And I just want to say that we really honor you for your work. We're very appreciative. And do you have any final word for us in regard to the solution?
Yeah, the transparency is the necessary. You need a hand marked paper ballot. There's so many variations of complexity that come with a hand marked paper ballot. You can it's almost like ballistics, like gun ballistics, right? So many other professions do this already. It's the problem that I see. If you fill in, hand and eye coordination, that's all you need for your intent. But when you fill in the ballot, I mean, you color in the circles. I mean, I've been coloring outside of the lines my whole life. So somebody's going to color outside of the lines. Somebody's going to color inside of the lines. Somebody may make a square or something, and this software can know what that intent is. It can figure that piece out, but nobody's going to fill the ballot in the same way. So you can't mass produce it. Computers are best when they're dealing with redundancy. I'm an automation specialist. Like I built a inventory program to manage $18 million in inventory, and I did so by using allocations. And it's just not like if you drop a bunch of CPAs in the election space, they'll find everything. If you ask any financial person what a top down allocation is, they'll recognize this immediately. They'll say it's just a top down allocation. That's literally what they'll say. But hand marked paper ballots, you still can have like scanners and central counting to speed up the counts, but only by countering that with a transparent measure, which would be an immediate release of poll tapes and making them public, immediately committed on election night, and also the releasing of the ballot images. You have to store them, and John will get into that, but releasing those ballot images on election night, because you can technically find all of the errors or fraud, and it's a complete deterrent to errors and fraud, because people can have election night parties. They can take their precinct and they can recount the entire party just using the images.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Benny, thank you again. And we will look forward to hearing your associate and partner in not crime, but electricity.
Right. That's right. That's my guy. My brother from another mother.
Yes, your brother from another mother. Thank you again, Benny.
Thank you.